Hey, my name is Ronnie Chavez, and this is my book review on The Art of Critical Pedagogy by Professor Jeffrey Duncan Andrade and Ernest Morrell. Um, Overall, the author's intent is to use critical pedagogy, its applications in urban schools by mainly bridging theory to practice, which was something I was really excited about. I think going into teaching, you hear, you know, both theories formally, in the packets of pages you read tirelessly to prepare for that first day, as well as, pedagogy as you walk the halls as a fellow teacher tries to prepare you as you walk into that classroom, to improve. And you hear these great things, yet sometimes you're just flustered because you're like, why isn't this working? So I think this is a perfect lead into. I think the book was written for that audience, as well as policymakers, but mainly I thought for teachers who are interested in theory, who know the theory, but who are sometimes at odds with how do we actually make this work, or I'm trying it, but it's not actually working. Um, the reasons for implementing critical pedagogy are it increases academic achievement, uh, it improves students' identity awareness of who they are, where they come from, and how success actually goes hand in hand with that. And then combining those two elements, it gives students a power to lead. And I think that's when you start really seeing change, is when you can get students to that point where then they go ahead and start using maybe a similar pedagogy in a field that whatsoever they choose. Some of the case studies in uh, Dr. Andrade's book are as follows. One was in East Bay with the Lady Wildcats basketball team. The idea was to apply the sports model, if you will, of test, experience, reflect, followed by reapplication. So something that sounds really intuitive, especially when we think of sports. You try something, it doesn't work. All right, let's figure out what happened. Let's reflect on it. Let's come up with a new idea. Now let's try it again. Um, I think it's interesting to think that this isn't always the model in education, when really I think this is probably the most effective model you can use. Um, in East Bay, they found that this praxis, it led to higher self-esteem for the players. The players then from there learned from their experiences, which then raised their consciousness of who they were in relation to the rest of their world, which led to a higher sense of realization. In addition, one of the case studies was in a high school English class in Oakland, California. Um, in terms of, and mainly I took from this was that engagement and positive culture were the key um, to academic success. Um, I think another big point was that how race and ethnicity are things that deal directly with students' identity. I think nowadays students are going home every day and they're seeing these issues, and they're coming into the classroom, and they're needing an outlet or somehow to for themselves make sense of this and find a way to express themselves. And I think this is a great point of the book that I took away, was that how education is truly meeting or intersecting with the ideas of race and ethnicity at this point in time. Another case study was in Southern California, and I thought this one was one I think I've continuously learned, and it's how students need to see their progress. In this case study, when students were actually able to see themselves improving, when they were able to see the results, whether something on the board or something on paper that showed incremental improvement, they actually fared better. A key word for me was transparency, to demystify the process of being a good student. Um, Lastly, I think overall what I thought of it was the book Dr. Andrade and Ernest Morrell were trying to challenge our perspectives. What is the purpose of a school? I thought it was very interesting at one point when he says that we a lot of times we think our schools are failing, but when we think about what the end game is, schools might be doing exactly what they're set out to do. Create competitors in a win-lose system, um, in terms of, oh, you get a grade or you don't, you passed or you don't. Um, Also, I thought there were some interesting questions in terms of, the things we've done, it seems forever in terms of grouping students by age, by grade. When I know that for a lot of teachers, reaching students at their target level is one of the things that drives us crazy. Um, and also, I think another big one was the idea of technology and culture and how fast they've, not necessarily, but how fast they progress, especially with technology. And when we look into a classroom, have they progressed as quickly? I don't know if the answer is yes on that. I'm pretty sure it hasn't. So overall, this book has forced me to challenge my perspective of what I've thought not only as school, but in terms of what I can manage. What is my classroom, and how are we going to kind of combat that and have students become, as Dr. Andrade says, their own liberators. Okay, well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.